Okay, so you join me from the third row in my R1S. There's actually tons of room in here. I've got plenty of room between my knees and the back of the seat. This would be where my daughter would be totally comfortable in her booster seat in front of me. And this is all the way back. So I've got it about 4 or 5 inches further forwards than usual. But I'm totally comfortable back here, and I could sit next to myself back here as well, with the same level of comfort, and have 3 adults in the center row, plus 2 adults in the front. This is legitimately an actual 7 adult seater vehicle. That's pretty unheard of. So when you're talking a vehicle that 7 adults can sit in, you are looking at full-size SUVs, minivans, and full-size vans. That's pretty much it. I am tall. My wife is tall. I expect that we're going to have tall kids. We do so far. But it was important to me that we have a vehicle that's going to accommodate us all the way through my kids being teenagers. I have 1 teenager now. I'll have more as we go, obviously. But baby seats also take up a ton of space. And there is going to be a baby seat in front of the seat I'm sitting in right now very shortly. We're welcoming a new one to the family. And I wanted a vehicle that I could get booster seats in next to the baby seat. And that's a big ask. Not many vehicles do that. On TFL, please go check them out. They're amazing. I'm sure if you're seeing my channel, you've already seen them and you're well aware of them. They're awesome. I like them. They do some really great reviews, but recently they were discussing full-size SUVs and the fact that their sales have actually declined 12.4%. They mention that this is because people are waiting for new product, because the full-size SUV segment has been super stale with the exception of the Wagoneer and the new Sequoia, I guess, just came out last year, I think, 2024 model year, in 2023 maybe. The kicker is, for me, for full-size SUVs, they have traditionally made bank when they sell those things. They make so much money, but they have been so stale. Since I bought my first Ford Expedition in 2006, which was a 2001 model year, I got it 4 or 5 years old, they changed very, very little from those first Expeditions through like 2015. It had the 5.4 liter engine. They did upgrade it to a 6-speed transmission over time. And then they upgraded the engine to the 3.5 liter EcoBoost. But they changed almost nothing else. It was effectively the same vehicle. They did update it in like 2018, maybe 2019. And it was an improvement. I drove that. It wasn't very nice. It was fast. It felt like a truck, but the seats weren't comfortable. The trunk space was laughable in the standard size. Even in the full-size Expedition, I previously thought that that would have more space than this. I've since learned better than that. And I was at Walmart this morning picking up a grocery order, a curbside order, and the person they had a full-size Expedition and they were loading in groceries and they had a stroller in the back. No room for anything. They were piling, eggs and bread and stuff all up on top of each other, on top of this stroller. And that's just, I think that's the real reason people are not buying full-size SUVs as much anymore, because there are other options like this, the R1S. It's amazing. And that's why I'm filming this in the third row. I still have a ton of trunk space. I'm touching the back window now. That's like, I'm 6'4", and that takes my full reach from the third row to touch the back window. The trunk space in there is comparable to, without the basement, just the regular trunk space is comparable to a Tahoe or a standard Expedition. When you get to the Suburban or the Expedition Max or a full-size Wagoneer, the Wagoneer L, the front, basement, and trunk space in this easily, and I've experienced this. I will post a link to the other video below as well, but the R1S easily has as much space, cargo space inside as any of those big full-size SUVs. Yes, there is more passenger space in those. That's undeniable. Great. I can get the cargo in better here because I have different levels. I don't have to stack it all in one cube space or rectangular space like the full-size SUVs have for trunk space. I have the front, I have the basement, and I have the trunk. So nothing needs to be smushed or stacked on top of each other. On top of that, from a safety point of view, not having a bunch of loose stuff, flying around in the back is great. So I have tie downs in the back, but if I had just big suitcases like I've shown in my videos, stacked side by side in an accident, there's nowhere for them to come flying at passengers, right? Whereas if I have a bunch of small loose stuff back there and I get in an accident, that can become, projectiles that are going to hurt people. And I know that because the Army has some rollover simulators where they have you pack vehicles with the ammo cans and everything else that you think you need in a way that you think is safe, and then they flip you in it. So you're going to get smashed in the face by kind of rubberized fake ammo cans or what have you, and you're in your full gear. Then they stop it upside down and you have to get out. So that's something that I've always kept in my mind ever since I experienced that myself, is every family road trip, what is in my car right now that's going to be a projectile if I were to be in an accident with my family. So to be able to store small stuff or whatever, anything loose items that may be a projectile in the front or the basement, and then keep just my big suitcases or bags in the back that can't possibly, come up and over the back seats. That's a cool safety feature, in my opinion. In my Expedition, I used to have a cargo net that I would drape over everything and strap that down. That might be OCD to some people, but it was my family's safety, and that's how I feel better going on a road trip, being prepared. When you compare an R1S to a full-size SUV, you're close on towing. This does tow more than like base model Wagoneers. I don't know what the rest tow, but I mean, the big boys tow up to like 10,000 pounds or something. That's a lot. An R1T will tow that much. The R1S will not. But this is eating into the sales of those SUVs. And I think that's what we're seeing, is that drop of 12.4%. R1S sales came from somewhere, right? And when you're comparing these dollar for dollar to a full-size SUV, this is way better. It drives awesome. It's not comparable. The active suspension's incredible. I would argue passenger comfort is pretty much as good. Again, maybe there's a little extra room in an Expedition or a Tahoe or whatever, but I think these seats and this setup, this suspension, the air controls and everything else, having the pano roof as standard, it all adds up to be just as comfortable. I can't say enough, when you start adding heavy duty tow packages and off-road packages or 4x4 or any of that, those things get more expensive than an R1S real quick. And you could take the very best, most expensive version of a Tahoe or a Yukon or an Escalade or an Expedition Max or a Wagoneer L or Grand Wagoneer L, and I genuinely don't think they're anywhere close to as good as an R1S, but they are vastly more expensive. So a standard R1S, a dual standard like this one is with the LFP battery pack, dollar for dollar, these are comparable to sort of the actual vehicles you see in dealer lots. A lot of times you'll see a Tahoe and it's like, oh, starting in the low 60s. That doesn't sound so bad. And then you go to their website and you add a couple options and suddenly you're at 70. Then you add tax fees and licenses and you're still at a base model with no features really, except bare minimum that you want. If you go to a dealer lot, you're looking at 80 plus on those things all day long. So again, this was like 78, I think 78.5, something like that. And then plus tax, title, fees, it ended up being the 82. So my whole point is, for those who don't need to tow 10,000 pounds, but do want to tow something like a ski boat or whatever, this will tow 7,700 pounds. It's got air suspension and active hydraulic roll control, a whole system, no stabilizer bars. It's a whole system that's going to control your towing load vastly better than a standard coil suspension like most of those SUVs have now in the back is an independent coil suspension. So there's a big chunk of people who like the idea of being in a capable vehicle that can do a lot of things like a full-size SUV, don't want to park one at work at a parking garage or at the beach or in a busy campsite or a national park or wherever. This is way better for that. This will actually go off-road way better. It won't tow as much, but I think it will tow much better. And in some cases it will tow more. But the question of where are full-size SUV sales going, right here, I'm sitting in it. I genuinely believe, some of those people are going to Cybertrucks. Make your own comments or thoughts about that. That's fine. I don't have one, so don't hate me too much. But some of those full-size SUV people are going to Cybertrucks. They're coming to R1Ts. They're coming to R1Ss. Maybe even some of them are going to EV9s. It is a 3-row SUV, but it is definitely much smaller than this and less capable. But I mean, the Lucid Gravity is coming up and coming out. So when full-size SUV manufacturers are asking as much money as this, as an R1S, for a product that is stale, old, and really hasn't changed much, in the last 10 years, 20 years even, it's a tough ask, right? And it's no wonder that they're making a lot of money because they haven't had to innovate. They haven't had to change. There weren't enough options. So people, who actually needed something like that, or wanted one, didn't have a lot of options. They were happy to make money. The manufacturers are happy to make money and sit on their haunches. Well, now things like the R1S, the Cybertruck, EV9 have changed the game. The ID Buzz even. So this will tow. This will go off-road. This is very comfortable for families, big families like my own. If you're spending your money as a family and you're going out and shopping around, there's not a lot to entice you over to a Tahoe that you can't differentiate. Like if you're looking at a brand new Tahoe on the lot, it looks the same as one from 5 years ago. Kind of the same with the Expedition. They've changed little things here or there, but over the last 10 years even, it's hard to differentiate which one is which and how old it is. So when you've got something like this, the R1S, it's a spaceship. It is a top-of-the-line luxury starliner from a sci-fi novel compared to any of those full-size SUVs. And then on top of that, it's going to be comparably priced or cheaper. To take it even a step further, the cost of operating any of those vehicles is gross, right? It's so expensive. So you're going to be, let's say minimum, you're going to be spending $300 a month on just gas. Then you've still got to take it into an old school dealership and get oil changes done and all that kind of thing. When there was no option and there was no competition, all of the big SUVs, the full-size SUVs, were really very similar. You were picking pretty small differences out. Which manufacturer did you think was going to be more reliable? Which one, may have towed an extra few hundred pounds? Which one did you like the seats better of than the other? That kind of thing. Whereas now you have a different option. If you are looking at full-size SUVs, do yourself a favor. Do not go and drive one until you've done a demo drive in a Rivian. I genuinely, there's not a ton of people that are going to be towing more than 7,700 pounds, less than 10,000 pounds. So if you're towing more than that, or you're towing that frequently, you really should be in a full-size, like, heavy-duty truck. But if you're not actually towing up to 10,000 pounds, this could do better for your family. You could save money. It may be cheaper to initially purchase, and then you can run it, as I've demonstrated with my solar, for free. I can charge this for free. So I'm not paying that gross gas, even if I wasn't charging it and having my solar offset my use and therefore charging for free. Then, and I was paying full price for electricity at my home. It's 17 cents a kilowatt. This is, I believe, a 92 kilowatt hour pack, max 0 to 100, and you're never charging 0 to 100, right? So, I mean, do the math. It's not that expensive. It's much, much cheaper than buying gas for one of those big old gas guzzlers with so many complicated parts and moving systems that are going to fail. Whereas this is, as we've seen, Tesla's lasting 20 years plus on their original batteries, and maintaining, I think the last video I saw was a 20, I don't want to say, Out of Spec Reviews did it. It was an early Model S. It was about 15 years old, and it maintained 84% of its pack, I think. Don't hold me to that. Go check out Out of Spec Reviews, because they're awesome too. But that was, an EV, I genuinely believe, is going to be more reliable. And I put my money where my mouth is on that. I've got a used Leaf, which is supposedly the worst EV that you can really get. I've got a used Leaf for my daughter. We've got an R1S for me. We have a Mustang Mach-E for my wife, because I genuinely believe that these are superior vehicles. Just right off the bat, they are way better to drive, even the Leaf, than a Corolla or a Focus, or a Hyundai, whatever. Okay, this is way, way better than any SUV I've ever driven, including Range Rovers. It's really good. And the Mustang Mach-E is awesome too. So that is, in my opinion, where these sales are going. Manufacturers lost out by not innovating enough. Now we're getting hybrids, SUVs, and they're only getting 2 or 3 miles per gallon better, as TFL said in their video, than the outgoing non-hybrids, but bringing a whole new level of complexity as far as additional systems. So they have now an electric motor and a battery pack, right, in a hybrid. So you're getting the worst of both worlds. You could argue that you're getting the best of both worlds as well. Long road trips and stuff like that, you are going to be able to do in a faster fashion than an EV. There's no denying that. And for some people who can't charge at home, whether they live in apartments and their apartment buildings don't have chargers yet, or whatever the situation is, then there are situations where an EV is not best for everyone. But for the overwhelming majority, I think they say 80% of people charge EVs at home at the moment. So 80% of EV owners charge their EVs at home. That number will change over the years, I'm sure, especially as public charging gets better. But this is going to be cheaper. It's way better to drive. It's a night and day difference. Driving this compared to a full-size SUV, Even the latest, greatest full-size SUV. Driving this compared to those is like driving a current full-size SUV compared to one from the mid-90s. They're really not even the same. Remember the full-size Blazers from the mid to early 90s, that kind of stuff. They were still doing the big Broncos back then based on the F-150s. And compare that to the new current model full-size SUVs. That's what the difference is from the current full-size SUVs to the R1S. It is night and day. The opportunity for Rivian arose because regular manufacturers were sitting back, cashing those checks, taking the easy way out, and not staying current, not updating or developing or innovating. And here we are with what I genuinely believe is the best SUV on the planet. Again, maybe not for everyone, but certainly in my situation, and I do think for 80 to 90% of the population, this is it. This is the best SUV you can buy. This is just so good. I highly recommend them. Please, if you're looking at full-size SUVs like I was, go and do a demo drive. You will be blown away with how, and like I've said before, take your luggage and stuff with you that you would normally take on a road trip or whatever. Even if you're coming from a minivan, you're going to have comparable space, but better used and better organized space in an R1S than you are with a minivan, than you are with a full-size SUV. You're going to be able to hang on to every penny of that gas money each month. If not, you'll be able to at least drop it by about 75%. So you're only spending 25% of what it was, even if you didn't have solar and that kind of thing, and you're charging at home. You will thank me if you go and drive one before buying a full-size SUV. This is way, way better, I promise. Make sure if you do use, or if you do end up buying a Rivian, make sure you use someone's referral code. Mine is down below, Adam142193. And you will get $750 to the gear store towards a charger or any of the other stuff. And 6 months free charging on the Rivian network. So, yeah. Do some research. I promise you won't be disappointed. If you're comparing the R1S at the moment, you put it, if you're not and you're looking for anything it does compare to, put it on your list. Make sure you go and see one, touch one, get hands-on, take a look, drive it for yourself, pack luggage in it, put your kids in it, and you'll see this thing is exactly where 12% of full-size SUV sales are going. They had to come from somewhere.